Okay, good afternoon, everyone. This is the EPICC training for the database. Caroline had sent out this morning a copy of the draft data entry instructions for version 2. I have not had a chance to go through yet and update that correctly to the new version. So that will be coming out probably early next week. Just before we get started, this is the training for the database, and I will briefly go over some of the changes and stuff that were made to the source documentation that everybody was sent a couple of weeks ago. It is up on the intranet version 2 if you want to go ahead and pull those down so that you can look at them if you have questions about them. Please put those in the smart sheet along with any other procedural questions that you might have. We would like for you to add those to the smart sheets so that we can get answers and everybody sees the same thing. So I will go ahead and start with the changes for the CRFs. I know that nobody can see them. There were quite a few changes made to the CRFs so that they align with the updated approved version of the protocol. So the source documents that were removed that are no longer being used would be the outcome CRF, the outpatient vital signs at enrollment, vital signs at admission. The vital signs CRF is now just one CRF that will be used throughout all visits. Also removed was the patient switch, and then the signs and symptoms. There was 2 of those. There's now just the one for the signs and symptoms to be used throughout. There were no changes made to the following source documents: the ultrasound, the complications, adverse events, no visit, or the survey, the Flu Pro questionnaire. So the other CRFs that did have changes, we did make updates and changes to the enrollment and eligibility. Changes were made to those to reflect the updated version of the protocol. The inclusion criteria was completely updated. That has been changes were made. The questions were changed. So the 3 questions there are new questions. I believe that was, and I believe we updated the only a couple of the questions for the exclusion criteria. We did add in on the bottom subject status at enrollment. There are 3 questions there that are new to this CRF. The next that we made corrections and updates to is we updated the demographics form. And on the demographics form, we have updated it to had primary mailing address. We added changes to the pregnancy header from to pregnant and postpartum subjects. We changed the gestational questions in there, and we updated the postmortem section of those. We also added in subject to infants and made updates to those as well for the gestational and gestational age at birth. For the daily labs and radiation, the daily labs, we added questions and stuff to those. We added the down by the lymphocytes and the neutrophils, we added those counts in. We added the units and stuff of that nature in with those. Those were not that at first. We included the lymphocyte counts and the neutrophils as we added. There's all the sites have a different way of collecting the count. So both counts are there. So it's either 10 times the 9 liters or the 3. So both of those are there. So it doesn't matter which count you put in, it's the same thing. So that there's no confusion and you don't have to check one or the other. They're both there. Does anybody have any questions so far? Okay. We also updated the clinical residual specimens. That form we have added. What we did was we took out and rearranged the blood samples. So what we did is that we grouped all the blood samples together, and then everything else under the biospecimen type. We were asked to put those in alphabetical order, which we have done. The bottom section, the storage method, has been completely removed from this CRF as well. And just for when all CRFs have been updated to the version 2, and to the inside, the date has been made to the of the date that the IRB approval for the new protocol, which was the 9th of June. So that's at the bottom of each individual CRF. On the additional medication source document forms was added, the start dates and the stop dates were added. That was a request that was made a while ago, so that has now been added to the CRF as well. On the comorbidities form, there were 2 changes made to this form. On page 3, I believe it was, page 2, the top used to be AIDS/HIV. AIDS has been removed. It now only shows HIV. And down at the bottom of this page, of this CRF, on page 2, you have the smoking questions, so the smoking and vaping questions, also smokeless tobacco use, and the options have been added to this CRF. That is also new components that are being collected.
Kim, this is Joanne from the BAMC site. I just wanted to ask if we're going to be adding an option to information not available, patient vented. So when a patient's on the vent, we're not able to get a lot of this information, and there's not an option for that.
Okay, if you could put that over on the smart sheets, we will get that answered and applied to the CRF if it is approved by the study team.
Yeah, this is Caroline. I can jump in for a quick second to give some feedback there. I think if the patient is vented, I would collect comorbidities that you can gather from chart review. You should be able to complete it that way without marking the whole thing is not done. But again, if you can put that question on the smart sheet, then we'll take a look.
Okay, we also have added, we also made changes and stuff to the daily assessment source document. So on this source document, for the maximum temperature and minimum temperatures, we have added the temp units, temperature units for those. It wasn't there previously, but now that those have been there, we've removed the unit from there. Also removed from the daily assessments was the nasal Sputum, urine, vaginal, oral, vomit, those options were removed. Those are actually on the physical exam CRF. So they were kind of redundant on this one. So they have been removed from this, but still remain on the physical exam form. Let's see.
Oh,
Yes.
hi. Sorry, this is Brian from Walter Reed. I apologize for the interruption. Just very quickly, just because I wanted to make sure I heard you correctly. Can you go back over what you were saying? The changes were for the clinical residual samples, as far as the CRS go. Because I apologize. But I thought I heard you say that basically they're getting rid of all the subcategories and only having the blood, so you wouldn't distinct between plasma that's in EDTA or plasma in sodium citrate. I wasn't sure if that's what you actually.
No, those categories are still there. What we did is the blood categories were updated, and all the blood samples were grouped together and have been all placed along with the other specimen in alphabetical order.
Perfect. Okay. All right. Thank you. Sorry about that. Thank you so much.
That's okay. Okay, so for the treatment CRF, we have changed that, and now there are two treatment CRFs. There's an inpatient treatment and an outpatient treatment CRF, which has all of the information for if your subjects are in the hospital while they're being treated in the hospital. A lot of the things have changed. We've added the high flow nasal. Other options have been added to this CRF as well. Basically, we took the treatment CRF and we just kind of moved things around so that they would be complete now with an inpatient and an outpatient source document. On this source document, also with the antibiotics, it was also added the start and the stop dates on this CRF as well. And then if you had more CRFs, that's when you would use the additional medication CRF. And it's all been updated in RedCap as well. Everything else remains the same on the treatment CRFs.
I have a question concerning the treatment CRFs. This is San Diego. If a patient is an inpatient and we complete the inpatient treatment CRFs while they are an inpatient through discharge, are we still required to do an outpatient treatment CRF through day 28, or is it just the inpatient CRF for those patients?
You broke up a little bit, Nicole. Can you repeat that?
I'm just wondering for inpatients, I know that we'll be completing the inpatient CRF for their hospitalization stays, but once they're out of the hospital, do we also complete an outpatient treatment CRF?
Hey, this is Caroline. I can probably help there too. So the inpatient treatment CRF is designed to capture the period during the hospitalization. So you could have more than one of those if the patient is readmitted at any time. The outpatient treatment is for the overall duration of the study for outpatients. So I think if you've completed the inpatient treatment, you don't need to then also complete the outpatient treatment at the same time. Makes sense.
Okay, so if a patient is given an antibiotic later on for something else with that year-long study, we would not capture that.
Yeah, you would capture that, but on the outpatient treatment. So if it's a treatment that's administered outside of a hospitalization, that would all go in the same outpatient treatment form that covers the duration of the study.
Okay. So then some people could have both an inpatient and an outpatient treatment CRF.
Correct.
Okay. All right, great. Thank you.
Sure.
Thanks, Caroline. I was trying to get the form open so I could look at it. Okay, so then the other changes that we've made, a few changes were made to the infectious respiratory disease CRF as well. Basically, under this CRF, we added basically just inclusive to the coronavirus question. So that has been, that was updated to add that option instead of the other option, I believe, was not confirmed, I think is what it said. So all of this now has been updated. The variable available now is inconclusive for your coronavirus test. And the question at the top, date of test, has been added instead of date test was performed.
Hey guys, this is Relisha from Portsmouth. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, cool. I had a question about the outpatient treatment source. I wanted to find out with respect to that, are these, this data collection, does it require, like, for instance, an antiviral agent that was something that was already being utilized, or is it based on information being collected and geared only towards treatment of COVID? Meaning, like, if they received an antibiotic for, you know, a yeast infection, would we be collecting that data?
Yeah, this is Caroline. I would go ahead and say yes. So if it was administered during the study period, I'd go ahead and capture it.
Thank you.
Okay. Then I'll go over, I believe, the last, only a couple of more changes on the CRF. So the onset admission CRF has also been changed and is now the disease of onset CRF. So that has been changed for that. So things are different. So now you have onset date, first and earliest of symptoms, the initial clinical visit, also the travel in 14 days period was added. And everything else throughout this from the admission has stayed the same. The end of study CRF, we did update the terminology on some of the questions within here. We changed stuff around if subject did not complete the study, indicate the primary reason. We changed a few of those. Basically, it was just the verbiage of the selections. So the other stuff has all remained the same. We also removed other specifieds from this from this group. So those will no longer be added for this one. I think I've gone over the main majority of the main things that have been changed. You can certainly go through the CRFs, and if you find anything that you have questions about or need further guidance on, please go to the Smart Sheet and add those there so that we can get everybody the same answers, and there won't be any back and forth with those. Does anybody else have any questions on these for now?
Kim, this is Susan. I had a quick question, two quick questions about the forms. We didn't do EPICC before, so these might be understood by other sites. On the admission mission form, it says unit where subject was readmitted. What about the first admission? Do we fill out something there if it's the first admission, or is this just if they're readmitted? I'm just not sure what the word readmitted means there.
Okay.
If they were enrolled as an inpatient, do we fill out that unit part? The word readmitted is just confusing me.
Readmitted is as if they have been admitted, they released, and then they were readmitted to the hospital.
Okay, so if we are enrolling an inpatient and we enroll them, they're in the hospital, that part we don't fill out because that's the current admission. It's not a readmission while in the study.
Correct.
Okay. And then on the daily on the daily assessment, I see that there's two on page 2. There's 2 lines that are the same for the Glasgow Coma Scale score. Why is there 2 of the same thing? And again, this might be clear to other sites who have already been doing this, but we haven't.
That is probably an error on my part, cutting and pasting.
Okay.
But I will go back through my notes and double check that. I think there's only
Kim,
Yeah.
this is Ed. That
Hey.
is not an error. We were requested by the study team to have 2 Glasgow
Yep, right here.
scores on that form. Caroline, could you please weigh in?
Yeah, I'm not aware of the background there. Was the decision made to enter it twice so that we're sure that we're capturing the right value to make sure they match? I'm not sure why we would have 2 values at the same visit.
So this is Terry Merritt. Is it possible, my interpretation of that was you were collecting the worst value of the day and maybe the best value of that day, and one was supposed to be the best and one was supposed to be the worst?
Yeah, I'll look into that a little bit more, everybody, and have some updates. It's a good question to raise. Thanks. And Ed, I'll try to get more information there.
Yeah, I found it in my notes. It just says per study team, add 2. But I don't have
And if we are doing this, if a Glasgow Coma Scale is like for inpatients is already in the chart, like the hospital did it, do we take that one, or are we kind of rating them ourselves?
Yeah, if it's in the chart, you can just take the one that's in the chart.
Okay.
I'll confer with the study team, and if we need to issue some updated guidance, I'll let you know.
Okay. So that's all I have for the CRFs. If everybody would just, take a look, if you've already taken a look, and if you do have other or further questions for the source documents, please let us know, and we can get those figured out and answered for you.
Kim, this is Relisha again. Will there be any type of guidance on how to complete these source docs within the manual?
Yes, I have a draft data entry instructions for version 2. It's not complete. I'm sending out that probably early next week.
Okay, thank you.
But yes, there will be data entry instructions coming through. You should have received, Caroline sent those out earlier. She sent out the draft. If you didn't receive it, just let me know. I'll send it to you again.
Thank you. We're on version 2, correct?
Yes.
Okay, yes, we have it. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. So we do have, like I said, we do have a draft of the source document for the data entry instructions for version 2. Right now, I'm going back through it and making sure that everything is set. But I can go over a few of the details and stuff of what's in here, what's included in this. If everybody would like to take a look at it and would like to send me any feedback or comments, it would be greatly appreciated. Don't feel that you need to, but if you would like to see something in this document, please let me know. If possible by close of business tomorrow, so that I can get those incorporated. So basic sections that are in here, basically it gives you details of the database and how to get signed in. Of course, as everybody knows, we have our data electronic capture is now RedCap. It does have its own address, is the edc.idcrp.org. That will take you into the RedCap version. The for users and accounts, request any types of accounts, terminations, modification requests, stuff of that nature needs to be sent to myself. And at such time, the CDM for this study going forth in the future. I believe everybody, Portsmouth, I did get your user accounts. Those have been passed along to Ed to get you guys set up. Well, once your names have been put in and stuff, you will get an email from RedCap asking you to log in, set up your password, and all that good stuff. So everybody will see the new, once we are able to go back in, you will see the RedCap. You will see the EPICC COVID study in there. You will only see the data for your sites. Each site has their own data access group, which is your list that goes into what you see your data in there, so that you're able to go in and look at your patients on the system. So that's how we get into there. Just some basic I'll just go over some basic stuff, and then I'm going to turn it over to Chris Olsen to give you an overview of the system. So to save the CRFs in the system, there's at the bottom each one for the completion of the form, which you can change to pending, incomplete, or completed. You can save and exit the form. The other one is save, and then you can go to the next CRF and continue entering there. Dates for this study are in the format of MMDDYYY. There's also a little icon beside each date, which you can click on. You can go to your date, press that, it will automatically fill in the date for you. The same for your times are recorded, 24-hour notation in the format, which is hours and minutes. Basically logging in to RedCap, it gives you the EDC, it gives you the address that you can go in. At the top, you just make sure that you do have edc.idcrp.org. You will get the logo in the front, RedCap, the login information, which is where you put your username and your password. Next would be going into the data collection. You have a thing that says projects. You would go and click on my projects. Under your projects would be the project title. And I'm not sure, it still says COVID-19 study. That's one of the things that I'll have to double check and look into, but it will have the proper name in the data entry instructions going forward. When you sign in, you're going to come up and there'll be a whole lot more information. Data collection, there's a records dashboard. The first that you will go into would be the view and edit records. You can choose your existing subject, which arm are they in, the subject record that you're looking for, or the new and existing. Then you could put in the subject ID number. There's also on this feature down below this, which needs to be added in here, is there's actually a search where you can start putting in the subject's subject ID number. Will help you search for that subject as well. The format is staying the same as it did for version 1. So it's the P and then 085 for the EPICC study, S for the site, then your site number, and then the remaining 4 digits would be your subject ID number. At this point, there's too much in here that actually needs to be changed on the data entry instructions. Is not in the correct order, but if you would just take a view of that and go over it, then we'll go to that. We'll can go over it at a later time. The other part, I believe, down at the bottom of this form is the how to do the data quality checks. Data quality checks and RedCap are basically the queries, is the query system. So there is a section. Yeah. So the way that this works is there have a button on the side for data quality checks. The last season, I believe last version, what we actually did is that we ran them on a Thursday. We sent them out on Friday, giving the sites to the following Friday to get those queries and stuff completed. So basically, I think we'll probably stick to that and just go from there. I think that's going to be the easiest way to do it. If we need to change it in the future, we can most definitely go with that. So when you're doing the data log, the data entry checks and going through, I will send you an email stating that you have checks. You would go into resolve issues. It'll be a button that'll be down below where you sign in for the normal dashboard and to the view and edit subject IDs. Once you click into resolved issues, there's a second tab that says resolve issues. You can go in there. You will see all of your queries that have been assigned to you. It has the subject number and it has the description of the data quality rule. And then basically I will assign, the CDM will assign those to you. What happens, it comes through, we sign it, we go in, make sure that it's valid query for your site. It is then assigned to your site. And then going in to resolve those queries, you can go in and look at them. There are, on the screens, you will see there's like little bubbles that you see on the other screen when there's a query. You can click on that and you can see where it is and see where you need to go in order to update your data. It was brought to my attention by a couple of the sites that a little bit more information of exactly what the data quality check is asking for would be appreciated. So going forward, there will probably a little bit some more description of actually what the query is looking at in order to help you go through those a little bit quicker and faster. Once the query is sent, we can add on there, we have a description, we can add it where it needs it's a typographical error, where it's a value error, something of that nature, then we will click on that and respond it. Once we receive the queries back from the site, which they're gone in and checked every other day to make sure to see if there's any queries that have been updated. If they've been updated, then we here at the DCC close those queries out. If the query description is not satisfied and another one comes out, we can resend that query out from you going through the same query response that we had sent before. So instead of sending like 3 or 4 different types of, oh no, this is not correct, we need this information, instead of getting multiple queries, this is actually, these come where we can turn around and send the same exact query, adding a different description to help you figure out what really we are looking for in order to satisfy that query. So you will have like a little audit trail when you look at that query of, you know, how it was answered, what is actually being looked for again, and then your response back to us, and then finally that the query has been closed. This process, query process, is a lot nicer than what we've had in the past, and I think it's I think everybody else is finding that it's a lot easier to look at and make sure that the data checks are getting completed. We do have on the screens, there are some checks on the screens that are done automatically, so that you can go ahead and fix whatever the error or something may be at that time. Does anybody have any questions on that brief review? Okay, so I'm going to turn this over to Chris Olsen, who has worked tirelessly over the weekend to get this converted over for everybody to make sure that we're in the new version. Chris, I don't know if there's something I need to do to switch it over to you. Oh, if I stop presenting, I think you may now be able to do present now.
That's going to work.
And do whole screen, your entire screen.
I'm going to do.
You should have a button down that says present now.
You should see me, or it should be coming. Can everybody hear me?
We can see the sites. The majority of the sites are, they can't.
They're just listening.
So they're listening and it's being recorded. So over to you, Chris.
All right, thanks, Kim. As everybody saw, Kim showed, you know, all the various form changes. I think more changed than didn't change. But for everybody but Portsmouth, who's now just joining us in EPICC, the patient flow has changed very drastically. Everybody's, except for Portsmouth, is familiar with, you know, you enroll in this study, you're either asymptomatic or symptomatic, and depending on all that, you kind of flow through different paths. Unfortunately, that really hasn't changed. You still kind of flow through different paths, but the key to it now is, are you in the hospital right now or not? So everybody, symptomatic, asymptomatic, flows through this common path. And if you're hospitalized, you kind of get a sub path for the duration of your hospitalization. And I'm not gonna, you know, go through Kim's instructions on how RedCap works. I'm just gonna kind of go through the flow of this study. So hopefully the people that can see are seeing our test system. And this is, you know, what we spent the last few weeks, you know, coming up with to kind of fit the study team's wants and needs. You know, very similar. You enroll people. There's forms for enrollment, and I have a couple new patients I kind of prepped up to show without taking a lot of time. But I don't think these forms have changed much. You know, you got enrollment date, some criteria. You know, did they sign the consent, or did they have some proxy, you know, respond form, whatever's under that thing there. The same old inclusion criteria, exclusion criteria. I think the next 3 questions are all key to the new flow, but they're all new, I believe. So subject status at enrollment. Did the subject have a positive SARS-CoV-2 lab test at enrollment? Yes or no? So yeah, yes or no. I don't think that has any flow variances there. Was this subject experiencing experiencing symptoms at enrollment, yes or no? This is what now controls who gets the flu pros, daily diary for 2 weeks at enrollment, or starting at enrollment. It's this question here. So if yes, the flu pro sends out, as sites and coordinators and stuff, it just kind of happens behind the scenes, either emails or texts, and I'll get to that kind of in a second. And the third question is, was the subject hospitalized at enrollment? Yes or no? That's what kind of helps drive, were you in the hospital at enrollment or not? And if you're going to have to follow that little sub path for that, for that particular time point. The key forms, and I kind of was like this in the old system, I think, are the enrollment form and demographics to kind of get the flow flowing. So you have to have both. Well, for the flu pros, we need how to contact you, and that's on the demographics form. I'm just going to start filling this out. So nothing really happens until these two forms are saved and complete. Give it a mailing address. And I'll take a text message. So at this point, things are starting to happen in the system. It's going to complain at me because I didn't give it a real mailing address. I can ignore and save records. So the enrollment event, I think, sort of tracks the same as it used to, except the onset. It used to be called onset and admission. It's now called disease onset. But kind of same things are required in enrollment, or desired at enrollment. Nothing's really required. Most of these forms have a not done if it's just, it's not capturable. But on the demographics form here, I did answer I was hospitalized enrollment. So you see that under admission discharge, the admission thing lit up red. So I think everybody's used to the red and green dots. And it's kind of something's incomplete or something's wanted. When it's a red dot, the gray dots are, there's something to provide eventually. We haven't got to a day 7. I just enrolled. So at admission time, the form is very simple to start with because we don't know anything. So I enrolled today because somebody enrolled me today, and I was admitted today. I don't know when I'm going to discharge, or nobody knows when I'm going to discharge yet. So I've just been, saving this form and exiting. So it still stays red, but I have an admission date. And if I go back into it, now I have a way to get directly to what's required during a hospitalization. So that wasn't there before. It shows up because you entered an admission date. If you click that and leave without saving changes. So this is what's required during the admission. So that it hasn't changed that much from what was there before, although I don't think we had daily events before. That was asymptomatic, symptomatic. It's basically the same forms, just rearranged to now be meaningful to their time in the hospital. If you never reach, day 5, you get discharged. You wouldn't fill out a day 5. And so if you're only there for a day, I guess you would just get the day you were admitted. There wouldn't be anything else to do. Research specimens work the same way. I think clinical residual samples has changed a little bit, but it still works the same way. I think these same things that are collected were happening before as an asymptomatic person, and sort of on that schedule, but not quite exactly. But now you have this, and it can stretch on, you know, for a long-term admission at 2 weeks. I was just trying to I don't know, make the screen a little skinnier. I know we like scrolling left and right. So from what I saw in setting this up, you know, in current history, what we have from version 1, not a whole lot of people stay past 7 days. Most people, you know, it's much shorter than 7 days. 7 days seem to be a good number. It still fits on one screen. If you need additional days, that would be this day 8 through 14. And then after that, the study would like, you know, weekly collections for the values specified there. And anytime you can get samples, the study wants samples. So that's kind of how that lays out. I can enter, and I can go into a FUR. Let me try. So something new, I don't think we've ever done a RedCap before. So everything used to have a no visit thing. We developed the no visit form just to make it simple. Well, now if you select no visit and complete the form, all the other forms disappear for that day. I don't think we've ever done that before. It can be reversed. You would have to reset, save the form, and they come back. You still get a green no visit form, but they will come back. But it does hide stuff, you know, if it wouldn't be necessary because for some reason that day couldn't happen. The person would still be in the hospital, I guess, but for some reason we couldn't collect anything. I don't think the study team's asking you to mark no visit for day 4, 5, 6, and 7 if they've already discharged. That might be a question for Carolyn. But up here at the for the admission to get back to the main kind of tracking, you know, tried to give you a way to stay out of the dashboard, and so you can just go back and forth between the kind of main record and the hospitalization period like that, and get straight back without having to go search again and stuff like that.
Chris, can I ask a quick question? This is Susan from Portsmouth. So I see how it's pretty cut and dry if they're admitted and enrolled on the same day. What if they're admitted yesterday and I enrolled them today? How does the day 2, day 3, day 4, that might not line up with the like day 3 and day 7 on the MTF part, will they? Is it day 2 from admission, day 2 from enrollment?
Day 0 may not always be, or day 0 may not always be the date of enrollment. I don't know the answer, Susan. I think this is a Carolyn question, but I believe that you enroll when you enroll, and if they've been in the hospital for 2 days, you're starting on day 2 of the admission. But that's not my call.
Yeah, this is Caroline. I can weigh in. So yeah, the study calendar starts on day 0 at enrollment and proceeds from there. It doesn't change based on the admission day. But we are trying to capture 14 days of admission data from each admission. So if they're admitted at the time of enrollment, you would start day 0 and you would capture admission, inpatient data for 14 days from enrollment day. And if they're admitted later in the study, then you would again capture 14 days of inpatient data for each admission. So yeah, if they're enrolled and they've been admitted for 3 days, it doesn't matter. You're counting that as day 0 for enrollment, and then you're starting that 14-day clock for data capture from the date of enrollment, is my understanding.
So day 2 on the RedCap could be day 4 of enrollment. Is that, or am I?
Yeah, the calendar is based on with day 0 being the enrollment date.
Okay.
I'm just trying to think of how to make that clearer. I mean, I agree with Sue. It's not clear, like Susan's saying, and it's I don't know how to make it clear, but okay. So enrollment day is always this. I mean, that's what it's gonna. Maybe we call this enrollment day instead of admission day, or enrollment.
Yeah, I think that would help, Chris.
Huh?
That sounds like it would make sense, Chris. Yeah, this is Karen.
That just might make it a little clearer. But so it's 14 days from enrollment for that first admission. So if they discharge from the hospital on the first admission, whether it was, you know, at enrollment time or a couple days later, whatever, if you're not in the hospital at day 7, you would do what you can of the outpatient day 7, I believe. Same with the outpatient 14. If you're no longer in the hospital, these apply. At any point somebody comes back in the hospital, you add a new admission. So now I admitted. I don't know if it's going to let me. I don't know if it's going to let me admit next week, but I'm gonna try. It probably shouldn't do that, but that's okay. So now you can have multiple admissions, and this one works the same way. It tracks through 14 days from, in this case, it is the admission date because I've been enrolled for some time. And you'll notice up here, and this is a RedCap, I don't know, limitation. I don't know if I call it a limitation or what, but so each admission, everybody gets a separate record. It doesn't matter that it's in a separate arm, and that's really what these are, is it's a separate arm. But every record has to have a unique ID. So this is just what I came up with to handle multiple admissions. So admission 1 gets, you know, the main study, the normal study, the number everybody recognizes with an H1 appended on it for hospitalization 1. If you have a second one, it's H2, 3, 4. Don't ask me what it does when we get to 10 admissions. I'm not sure. No, I know, and I can't answer the question because it won't like 10 admissions. It'll like 9 admissions just fine. It won't like 10 admissions. Hopefully we don't have anybody admit 10 times in the calendar year they're participating in the study. But that's a kind of a RedCap thing. So each one is an independent 14-day, or actually more than 14 days, but an independent time frame that you know, have their own complications and their own treatments. And it flows through like that. And everybody else just flows through the same way. I mean, you know, if you're not in the hospital at day 7, here's some outpatient stuff. Here's some outpatient stuff at day 14. You know, anytime there's samples available, that's not like a scheduled count or a study visit, would go under additional specimens. Day 28, 6 month and 12 month. There's these anytime events. You can get tested at any time. It's kind of like additional samples. You could, I guess, get an ultrasound at any time. It's there. You can have complications down the road as an outpatient. You can have treatment. And at any point in time, you can get out of the study. The last thing, and anybody that can see the screen, if it scrolls that far to the right without me moving around, it says EPICC V1 data holding. So that was just a place for us to put the data that we've been collecting over the past, 4 or 5 months now, that no longer really has a home. We used to have a day 42 event, some day 3 events, some week 3 events, you know, for the asymptom or the symptomatic people. All that data will be there when we get moved over to the new system. There's nothing you should have to enter there. I can't hide it from you. I wish I could. I can't really turn them off either, because you enter those forms in other places. But it was just a place to try not to lose any data in the conversion over to this kind of new flow of things. What am I missing? Has anybody got any questions? There are some new questionnaires at enrollment time. We send out a questionnaire. It's not something you enter. It's something that gets sent to the person once we have a phone number, an email, and your preference.
Hey, Chris, I have a quick question. This is Terry from BAMC. So regarding the surveys that are going to be sent to the subjects, I had a subject this morning ask to change the number, the contact number. So is that going to be a problem if somebody originally said they wanted things by text message, but now they say they wanted things by email? Is that going to be a problem?
No, good question. We've had that problem in past studies. I think we've got around, if you just go update their demographics. So, you know, I chose text. If you choose email, it's going to clear my text on my cell phone number.
Okay.
But it's going to prompt you for an email. You plug in an email, and that'll flow through the whole system.
Okay.
Just fine. Just by doing that.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So. So just to, it's going to complain, just to show kind of the kind of full flow of the dashboard. I think my little test users, I don't know what my little test user is. Oh, I was entering 0. I was entering like I was a BAMC person, but I think I'm set up as a MAMC kind of coordinator. So you see, there's still three arms in this study. Everybody flows through the MTF. That's the main thing. It's called MTF cohort because there's an online component of EPICC, you know, being turned on shortly. For a while it was actually part of this project, but toward the end of the kind of development, it got moved out to its own thing. So here's the flu pros, and you're seeing data that was, you know, test converted from the old system. So this probably is a real patient. So it flows, you know, very similarly to the old way. You don't really have to go in there. I mean, I guess you might have to go in there to pay somebody if they provided flu pros. So you might have to go in there and see, I don't know what the rule is for payment, but to go in there and see what they responded to. This guy happened to do pretty good. He missed a couple days early on, but otherwise he was good. And that works the same way. It takes you back. It doesn't take you back to the dashboard, unfortunately, because that's where I came from, but it takes you back to that person's main record. And then you can go straight to, why isn't that working? Nobody on that list might have one yet. I don't think, did I enter any data? Oh, whoops. I probably didn't enter any data. But that you can go see the inpatient stuff as well. I don't know why the people aren't showing up there. Oh, this is old test data. So as you can see, it's still called redo. And the new, once we switch over, it'll be called, I think it's COVID EPICC version 2 or something. I don't really remember the name. But it looks like a lot like the last one, but it's got a V2 on it, or version 2, or version 2.0, I think. V2.0. What else can I talk about and answer questions for?
Hey, Chris.
Yeah.
So talk a bit about the version 1 data that is no longer applicable in version 2. and where that data can be found.
Yeah, I was going to talk about that earlier, and I just don't quite. I'm going to open up a patient. This person, looks like me now because it's a test person. So, to test this stuff, I made people, my name with my email or cell phone number. At least this guy's a male. I've been running into a lot of 70-year-old female Chris Olsens. So, this is real data. So don't watch too closely. So as I mentioned before, I think the symptomatic arm before, and this really doesn't apply to Portsmouth, but everybody else, the symptomatic arm had a day 3 event, day 42 event. I don't know the whole list of them. And there was a handful of forms, and that's what I was kind of alluding to earlier, this EPICC V1 data holding. It's vital signs, research specimens, infectious respiratory disease diagnosis, and physical exam that lived on those different events. They all get stuck here. The day of the event, kind of the timing, unfortunately goes away a little bit, and all we get left with is a date. So you'll see this guy has, so he has some research samples that were collected at those specific time points. So down here somewhere, so there they are. They become just the date and the sample types for this old data holding. They just keep repeating and repeating as necessary. We went through great lengths the past couple of days to try to make sure nothing disappeared or will disappear when we get there. And if you have problems finding it, it's probably coming off of one of those days and it landed, right there under that kind of catch-all for the stuff we didn't know what to do with. There's not a specific day or anything. So I hope that explains that. And I know for Portsmouth, it probably will make no sense, but everybody else kind of knows the current, daily flow or schedule of events. And that's what happened there is they just don't exist. There's no week 3s. There's no day 42s anymore, anywhere. This is not a good example because this person never was admitted. So this must all be asymptomatic data in this person's case, because it doesn't appear like they were ever admitted. And in the old rules, Susan and everybody else at Portsmouth, if you were asymptomatic, there was no place to kind of mark you as admitted even. It was a little strange. Carolyn, did I say everything right about if you're admitted and you're already discharged, the inpatient day 7 applies?
Chris, sorry to interrupt, but Carolyn had to drop off.
Oh, bummer. She's the.
What was your question?
Just to make sure I explained it right. So if you join and are a short-term inpatient, a 2 or 3 day stay, that outpatient day 7, would still apply to you in theory. If you're not in the hospital at day 7, you're an outpatient, and that stuff needs to collect the same at 14. If you happen to never be admitted, or admitted for a short-term discharge and came back and it overlapped day 14, you wouldn't capture an outpatient day 14. That would be part of the inpatient data. I mean, the forms are, completely in overlap, I think. When you're an inpatient for these outpatient days, there's just a lot more when you're an inpatient. But I'm not sure I understand that part of it, but I think that's true. I think as long as you're in the hospital, those outpatient days don't apply at that point in time. And like I said, you can admit hopefully not more than 9 times in the calendar year we want to, or the running year or whatever we want to follow you up on. Because 10 would be a problem, I can already tell you. By the time I got that far along, I don't know that I could count to 10. This was a chore. Any other questions? Any other sites? Sites that have been running the old stuff, does this look better? Maybe everybody left.
It doesn't sound like there's any questions. I have a quick follow-up for everybody. The question that I think it was Susan Banks had earlier about the Glasgow score. Caroline and I have been talking behind the scenes while the training was going on and agreed there was a miscommunication about that. And so the Glasgow coma score is only going to be asked once. So we'll take care of things on our end to make sure that that's clear.
Thanks, Ed.
All right, Kim, any final wrap up that you'd like to do?
No, I don't have anything. I will make that correction to the source document for the Glasgow and go from there. Do the sites have any questions for either Chris, Ed, or I?
Hello, so this is Terry at BAMC. So did the migration complete?
We are still we're still working on that. We're doing some last checks. We're still trying to get it out today. Excuse me. I will send out an email to everybody as soon as the migration is complete and we're getting ready to give everybody access to the study.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, anything else? Okay, well, thank you everyone for joining. I hope we covered everything for you this time. Hopefully this will be a lot easier than last time. Like I stated at the beginning of the call, this session was recorded and we will pass this training on to all of the sites. So if need be, you can go back and listen to it. Or if you have any other questions or concerns, please make sure to fill it out on the smart sheets, or if it's something simple or easy, please feel free to email myself, Ed, and Chris. And I hope everybody has a rest of their day is good and stay safe. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Kim.
Thanks, Kim.
Thanks, everyone.